Disclaimer: this video will spoil some aspects of Daima, so watch that before watching this. Hello everybody! Welcome to Ben 10 What If Aliens. This is actually a remake of the first Ben 10 video on this channel. A video that the boss man is kinda proud of, but kinda disappointed in. You know, he's proud of it because it's what launched this channel and got it off the ground, but disappointed because we had used some stolen assets to do so. Now, we were going to release this video back in 2024, but the week we were going to start the editing process, Dragon Ball Daima came out. And rather than make a third revision where we would, cover the Daima stuff with lore edits and stuff, we decided to hold off on that and just wait till Daima was finished before doing the video. Now, a quick reminder of the rules for clarification in this series. No magically or genetically modified creatures or any kind of created aliens, which does include things like the experiments from Lilo and Stitch and the xenomorphs from Alien. However, sapient non-human species like elves or Pokemon, those we're going to count. And since this is a remake here, I'll be covering the same aliens as we did last time. The Frieza race, the Namekians, and finally, the Saiyans. Now, before we get into it, some people have argued that the Majin should be on the list of applicable transformations. We're going to make our case as to why we're arguing no. See, originally, we had the idea that Majin Buu was created by Bibidi, thus it was made from magic and couldn't be scanned. And on top of that, the extended Dragon Ball universe, Majin Buu reproduces by removing parts of himself to create a new Majin, and then finally, the argument we had in Ben 10 terms was referring to how Enidites, like Ben and Gwen's grandma Verdona, were made of magic and weren't able to be scanned. But it was originally brought to Bossman's attention that Buu was created via the chaos of the universe's creation, or something along those lines, and we would have accepted it as an explanation of natural life. However, with Daima, it was revealed that Buu was magically created by a witch in the demon realm, along with two new Majins, those being Ku and Du. So while Bossman is a big enough person to admit when he's wrong, in this case, he was right. So no Majins will be added to the possible transformation list. By our accounts, at the end of the day, this is a fan fiction, you can do what you want with it. And finally, before we dig into the aliens, we do have to reiterate something from the original version of this. Ki energy. Now, in the original video, Bossman argued that Ki was a natural source of energy that could be used by any species in Dragon Ball. And by that logic, it makes sense. And, Ben would be able to use it too. However, we decided to look at things from a couple different angles this time. But one thing to stress is that Ben is not going to be able to use the more well-known techniques due to them being, well, techniques. You see, Ben is almost defenseless outside of his alien forms, and he doesn't really train to fight. In his human form, at least, there have been an episode or two where Ben practices with aliens, but he wouldn't be able to transform into a Saiyan and fire off a Gallic gun with no effort, nor would he even know that was an option. Also keep in mind that for most of these forms, I'll be talking about usefulness in both Dragon Ball and Ben 10. So if we say that a form isn't useful in Dragon Ball, it doesn't mean that we're saying the form is useless. Now, with all that out of the way, welcome to the episode. I'm Kralo, and let's get right into the aliens. Though they don't actually have any canon name for Frieza's race, it's typically referred to as the Frost Demons by many fans in the West, thanks to a mistranslation in early DBZ material. And until Daima, it's what we would have called the Frieza race. But thanks to Daima giving more details on the demons in the demon realm, we'll just refer to it as the Frieza race. Anyway, the cold and ruthless, seemingly monogendered species that is in canon, only known to the rest of the galaxy by its icy spokesperson Frieza, his father King Cold, and his Universe 6 counterpart Frost. This cold-hearted species, while really only having a handful of known specimens in the series proper, actually have more of their species shown in the B-canon material, such as his distant ancestor Chilled, his brother Cooler, and his son Koriza. What little we do know about the Frieza race comes from the overpowered mutants of the race, Cold and Frieza, and it's that they have the ability to transform from their fourth form to their first form and back, and that their abnormally high battle power is not common amongst their kind. And look, I get it, we had mutants in the Marvel episode, but we could at least make an argument for why they were included there. That being that their mutations, while forced, were at least old enough that we could argue that the Watch would see it as a natural drift in human evolution, since most of human evolution is quite literally just different sets of mutations taking place over thousands of years. Here, however, the mutation is a recent thing that began with Frieza's grandfather, and won't be seen in our eyes as scannable. We might make a video on what we consider for these videos at a later date, but don't expect it anytime soon. Now back to Frieza's race. While we won't consider Frieza and his family as scannable, we will consider that Ben would be able to get a hold of the race's DNA from other sources, like the Time Patrollers or the heroic Frieza race members that we see in Dragon Ball Heroes and the other games. And yeah, I kinda needed to stretch my search since almost every canon and a few non-canon members of the race are related to Frieza in some way or from Universe 6. But they do possess a somewhat high battle power, though not quite as high as Frieza's, the ability to breathe in space, the common ability to use Ki, they can grow removable organic clothing, and the ability to survive life-threatening wounds. They also have the ability to turn into an amplified form as a bit of a power boost, kinda like what Super Saiyans are, and they can pick the color of those amplified forms. Which for Frieza, he chose to make his form golden, as a way to mock the Super Saiyans. Though how this was achieved and how they're able to pick the color is unknown right now, and a new thing as of writing this is a powered up version of the amplified form, which for Frieza takes on a black color. Bossman didn't talk about it much in the original video, but then again it was just him listing off powers, so the golden form is a powerful form, but when used by an untrained user, it rapidly drains the stamina and requires training to compensate. And it took Frieza 6 months of some form of training for the first time in his life to unlock it, and the black form took Frieza 10 years of nothing but training to obtain. So I doubt Ben would be able to use either one of those without some kind of outside help. Now for this and every alien's ultimate form in this video, there won't be a deviation from the original video. Which brings us to the ultimate form of the Frieza race, using Cooler's 5th form and the fan-made 6th form from Dragon Ball Multiverse as a basis for this. Our ultimate Frost Demon would have 4 arms and is about a 20-foot tall monster. This form would sacrifice speed for power and would be very destructive. Add on a golden form on top of that and you've got a powerhouse, with the only problem it has to worry about being the stamina. This form would be quite a threat to Ben 10 foes, as it allowed him to just let loose and potentially destroy a planet if Ben wanted to. A common power in mid to late Dragon Ball. But for weaknesses, it would be slower than normal Frost Demons and wouldn't have that much spatial awareness, so this form could get blindsided, assuming that he doesn't have Ki tracking. Because as a reminder, just because Ben has Ki doesn't mean he's going to know how to use it effectively or have every technique that his species has shown to use in Dragon Ball. Next up is the Namekians. In the original version, we didn't have a lot of info on their origins, but thanks to both Daima and the Dragon Ball Super manga, we have both information on their origins and a new form thanks to Dragon Ball Super Superhero. Now, there's still not much known about the origins of the Namekians, but in Daima it's clearly stated the Namekians don't originate from any of the 12 universes in Dragon Ball, but that they exist in most of them. They're from the Demon Realm, and there are 2 clans of Namekians in Universe 7, which is the main universe that Dragon Ball focuses on. The Warrior Clan and the Dragon Clan. Though there used to be a third known as the Demon Clan that could vary wildly in appearance, though we are now unsure if that clan is just Demon King Piccolo tapping into his ancient roots or something. We will, however, be focusing on the Warrior Clan as our topic. One of the less obvious powers of the Namekians is their enhanced toughness. Specifically, their skin is as strong as iron, allowing them to shrug off bullets, blasters, and other weapons as if they were nothing. This enhancement also extends to weathering various elements, making them nigh impervious to hot and cold, although they do still suffer the effects of the vacuum of space. Their skin isn't completely impervious, however. Some things can still pierce it. For that, we have the next power on the list. The most iconic power we see Namekians use is their regeneration. Honestly, I'd go so far as to call it super or even hyper regeneration. They can regrow limbs in an instant with some effort, allowing them to sacrifice limbs in combat, like lizards using their tails to flee predators, except they use it to keep fighting. More impressively, they can form a clone embryo in their body and launch them away as a last-ditch survival mechanism, regenerating and maintaining their knowledge, skills, memories, and personality from just a few cells. This isn't as impressive as some other healing factors, but still really useful in combat, and admittedly really cool. On to the reason they're likely able to maintain their memories, skills, and personality. All Namekians are telepathic. They can communicate across planetary distances with nothing but their mind. They can't reach other planets, unfortunately, but that is still further than most aliens that Ben already has. A less talked about but still really useful set of powers that the Namekians have are their enhanced senses, mainly their hearing and sight. Namekians can hear things even said at a whisper from a distance, to the point that during the King Piccolo saga, Pilaf told Mai and Shu not to whisper, as King Piccolo could still hear them, and during the future Trunks storyline of Z, Piccolo was able to hear everything Trunks said to Goku. As for the eyesight battle, untrained Namekians are shown to have the ability to keep track of battles that to the average person would resemble nothing but a blur. Now moving on to some of the Namekians' more practical powers, stretching and gigantification. Namekians can extend their arms far and grow to a giant size. The stretching drastically increases their range for melee combat, while the gigantification increases their size but does nothing to their strength, as it's mostly used as a bluff, as confirmed in Dragon Ball Super Superhero. Namekians can also permanently fuse together with one personality going dominant, though they retain the memories, skills, and experience of the others. This also adds and increases their strength, making the fusion greater than the sum of their parts. Speaking of that movie, Orange Piccolo. The form isn't available to Namekian Time Patrollers, yet we can't assume the form's natural either due to the fact that it was given by Shinron, unless it's explained away in one of Xenoverse 2's DLCs or a continuation of the Dragon Ball Super manga. For now, I'll say that Ben as a Namekian can't use it, but what he can use is this. The Ultimate Namekian. Like in the original video, this is a form sacrificing speed and mobility for defense and power. The Ultimate Namekians are a formidable foe for any opponent. However, there is a problem. Mobility. It doesn't matter how hard you can punch if you can't land the hit, as shown when Trunks was fighting Cell. But this is a problem in the Dragon world, where its mid-tier fighters are faster than the eye can track. Not in Ben 10, where speeds of that level are insanely rare for most foes. Saiyans are a warrior race originating from planet Sadala before a civil war of sorts involving a Super Saiyan happened, destroying the planet and leaving them homeless, until they forcefully conquered Planet Plant and renamed it to Planet Vegeta, after the leader of the conquerors, King Vegeta I, the great-grandfather of our Vegeta. Now in the original version of the video, Bossman was a little downtrodden on the Saiyans, mostly because almost everything he saw at that point in the show and the manga was just Saiyans using abilities that were common in the universes, with the main differences being Super Saiyan and Uzaru. otherwise known as the Great Apes. Now, we'll be looking deeper into Saiyans than we did last time. Saiyans actually have a mostly human physiology, with one main difference that's also a weakness. They have monkey-like prehensile tails that they can use to grab stuff, but they aren't used in fights. The reason for that is because without intense training, the tails are a massive weak point, and if grabbed, the Saiyan feels extreme pain and loses all their enhanced strength. Do they have enhanced strength over a normal human? Yes and no, but to understand why, we need to look at the next power. Zenkai is a power that all Saiyans have access to, where they gain a massive and permanent boost to their strength when they're in near-death situations. When close to death from battle wounds, they gain a boost in power, allowing them to fight back and win, not unlike the hysterical strength in humans. The difference is their enhanced strength doesn't go away afterwards. Unlike humans, where the strength is either always there, but not used because it could hurt us, or just a result of adrenaline, which is then flushed out of our systems. We don't know how hysterical strength works. There's really no ethical way to study it. Anyway, this is due to the Zenkai boosts increasing the amount of S cells in the Saiyan's body, and a higher amount of S cells actually increases the capability of a person being able to turn into a Super Saiyan. The least obvious power, because it has long since become a shonen trope because of Dragon Ball's popularity, is enhanced learning speed. This isn't super obvious because Goku, our main view into Saiyans, he's kind of an idiot. Also because it doesn't apply to the sciences. Saiyans are able to learn physical and ki-based disciplines and techniques much faster than they should be able to. Things like the Kamehameha, which is supposed to take years to learn, Goku learned it in the course of a single afternoon. This, in part, comes from an ability to mimic the movements and fighting style of others, as we see when Kid Goku learns from Korin. This is also seen with Vegeta on Namek, where once he learned that Earthlings could sense battle power, somehow he taught himself to do that almost instantly. Obviously, the most destructive power of a Saiyan is the Uzaru, a giant ape form they take when they see a full moon or use a fake moon like Vegeta did in the Saiyan saga. Without training, the Uzaru is a mindless, rampaging beast that destroys everything around it. You could learn to control it, but it would take years of dedicated training. There's also the Ikari, or the Rage Boost, which at the moment is only usable by Broly, but it might be a genetic thing passed on to other Saiyans who are his descendants. And we're going to act as if it's a rare case. It basically gives the Uzaru boost of a ×10 power increase while in humanoid form rather than the Great Ape form. But now we move on to the most famous power of the Saiyans, the Super Saiyan state. According to prophecies, it is some kind of superior version of Zenkai. This is wrong in numerous ways. Firstly, it's temporary. Secondly, it's activated at will rather than in desperate situations. The Super Saiyan state after Super Saiyan 1 is divided into two paths, the Primal Path and the Divine Path. The Primal Path goes through Super Saiyan, Super Saiyan 2, Super Saiyan 3, and Super Saiyan 4. The Divine Path goes through Super Saiyan God and its alternates. Prior to Daima, we thought that Super Saiyan 4 was locked into the GT canon, but with the final reveal of Daima, it can actually be obtained via training and doesn't even need a tail to access like we used to think. Which actually kind of lines up with Vegeta getting it in GT, as he needed a power boost to obtain it rather than just regaining control of himself while using the Super Saiyan Uzaru form. Now, the Ultimate Saiyan resembles a fusion of Super Saiyan 4 and Uzaru. It is taller than your regular Saiyan, and while losing its ability to turn Uzaru, can still access base Super Saiyan, assuming the user had figured out how to do that in the first place. In terms of power, the Ultimate Saiyans are stronger than regular Saiyans, though considering the average Saiyan battle power was around 1,000 before the destruction of Planet Vegeta, it's not counting for much in Dragon Ball terms. But in Ben 10 terms, the Ultimate Saiyan would probably give Vilgax at his peak a run for his money. Now on to the final recap. In the case of Ben, each of these aliens would have their own strengths and weaknesses. Now personally, I feel Ben wouldn't seek out masters to train with in order to learn key techniques, since he's been shown to be lazy from time to time, and I really don't think he'd have the will to unlock Super Saiyan or any of its augmented forms. But that doesn't mean he's a bad fighter, just unskilled when compared to Goku and Vegeta. Though in Ben's world, he would probably put Namekian and the Frieza race on his hard-hitting team since they're naturally more powerful, more so when going Ultimate. The Saiyan, while stronger than an average human, would take some time for Ben to figure out, and he might disregard it as a weak form just like he did some of his other forms when he didn't find them useful right out the gate. Before we end this video, we do have something to talk about. During the production of this video, Akira Toriyama passed away, and in fact it'll be a year since he died when we post this. It would honestly just feel wrong not to thank him and his legacy. While his death doesn't impact this channel as much as others, it would be rude not to mention the impact he had on not just us, but on everyone out there. Learn well, play well, eat well, and rest well. The Kame style is with you.